All right, a few things. I've added in the directions to find A. Also for the test, bring in your A table, your cheat sheet, and also on the test, but that is not on the review, will be the graphing shortcuts to help you guys get through them because we do not expect you to have all those things memorized. So let's go ahead and get started. Number one, before I even graph it, I'm going to actually just take a quick look at what A is, and since it's -1, that's going to tell me that my U is upside down. Number two, when I take a look at what A is, it's 2, so since it's positive, I will be having a regular U. And on 3, A is -1, so I'll be having an upside down U. So that gives me a quick idea of what I should be looking for when my picture's done. Starting on number 1, what I'm going to do is find the vertex. So according to the shortcuts that will be on the test, but you should be looking at in your notebooks, which is page 68, in order to find the x-coordinate, I need to take the opposite of b, so that's going to be -4, and divide it by 2 times a. And we already wrote down that a is -1. So when I look at that, I will end up taking 4 divided by -2, so that will make the x-coordinate of my vertex 2. Now, to find the y-coordinate, what I'm going to have to do is take the fact that x is 2 and put it back into my problem. So I'm actually going to put that above where the actual equation is. So when I do that, and if I'm going to let my calculator help me, a is -1, and then I'll be taking 2 and squaring it, plus 4 times 2, and then I'm going to actually add it as -5. And in standard form, whenever you put x in, wrap it in parentheses. I don't care if it's a positive number or a negative number. So your calculator can help you get through this, but I'm going to show you mathematically how you'll do that. So starting with the first term, I'm going to do the exponents first, and 2 squared is 4. And then 4 times that -1 gives me -4. So for my first term, I get -4. In my second term, 4 times 2, I get 8. And then my third term, I'll just bring along with -5. So when I add those all up, I end up getting -1 for my y-coordinate. So now I'm going to graph my my vertex. So I'm going to go from the center over 2 and down 1. There's my vertex. And I already know that it's an upside down U. And then I'm going to use my A table, and it's going to tell me to go down 1 and over 1, and then down 3 and over 1, and then down 5 over 1 if I have room. And I do, so I'm going to put as many points. And if you want to connect the points, you can. You can also just leave the points if you don't want to draw the U. All right, number 2 is intercept form. I'm sorry, vertex form. So the reason why it's called vertex form is when I look at it, I should be able to see the vertex. And I'm going to find the x-coordinate by looking inside the parentheses. And the shortcut is take the opposite. But I also want you guys to think about what turns those parentheses into 0, and that's 3. And then the y-coordinate is k as is. So if I add the opposite, it's -2. But mathematically, why it's -2, if I make x 3, then in my first term, if I put 3 in for x, I'm going to get 0 in the parentheses. And then 0 squared is 0, and 0 times 2 is still 0. So my whole first term becomes 0. So if I make x 3 and I do the math, I'm going to get 0 plus -2, which is going to make y be -2. So that's why it's k as is, because y will end up being -2. So graphing my vertex, I'm going to go over 3 and down 2. I already know it's a regular U, and I'm going to use my A table to go up 2 and over 1, and then I'll go up 6 and over 1, which I have room for, and then that's good. That's all you need. All right, number 3 is the final form. This is intercept form. So it's called intercept form because, again, when I look at the parentheses, it's going to tell me where my graph intercepts the x-axis. It's not going to tell me the vertex. It's going to tell me where the graph intercepts the x-axis. So the shortcut is take the opposite of what you see in the parentheses. But again, I want you guys to ask yourself, what's going to turn these parentheses into 0? -2. And I'm going to go to the x-axis and put a point at -2. When I look at my second set of parentheses, what's going to turn that into 0? 4. And then the vertex, which lies on the line of symmetry, is right in the middle of those 2 points. So you can either work your way to the middle, but what I'm going to do is take these 2 numbers that we just graphed, and I'm going to add them up. I'm going to divide by 2. So when I'm done doing that, I'll be taking 2 divided by 2, and I'll be getting 1 for my vertex. And then just like in problem 1, to find the y-coordinate, I'm going to take 1 and plug it back in. So I'm actually going to be doing this down below. So looking at this, remember a is negative 1, don't forget that. And then x, which is now negative 1, plus 2, and then negative 1 minus 4, which I'm going to add the opposite. All right, real quick, I messed up. I was looking at a and I put negative 1 in. I should be putting positive 1 in. So quick correction there. So working through this, I'm going to have a negative 1. From my first set of parentheses, I get 3, and from my second set of parentheses, I get negative 3. So when I multiply all of these numbers, I'm going to get a positive 9. So I can now graph my vertex over 1, up 9. And it is still possible to get additional points because a is a pretty easy number to work with. So I'm going to go down 1 and over 1, and then down 3 and over 1. And if I go down 5 and over 1, I'm actually just going to overlap the points I already have. And if you want to go down 7 and over 1, you're more than welcome to, but you can actually probably stop with the other ones. But that's a really good U. The more points, the better off you are. All right, let's take a look at number 4. We have standard form again. So going through this row, on number 4, a is 3, so I'm going to have a regular U. On number 5, a is 1, regular U. And on number 6, a is 3, so regular U. Remember, if a is a positive number, it's a regular U. If a is a negative number, it's upside down. So first I'm going to find the vertex, so I'm going to take the opposite of b, so that's 4, and divide it by 2 times a. So I'm going to get 4 sixths, which as a decimal, that's going to be 2/3. Or I'm sorry, it's a fraction, a simplified fraction, it's 2/3. And now what I'm going to do is put that back in. Again, you guys, if you want to let your calculator help you do this, that's fine. Just make sure that when you put your 2/3 in there, you're going to put it in parentheses, just like we did on number 1. So I'm actually going to move up a little bit and do that here. So if you're going with your calculator, it's going to be 3 times 2/3 squared, and then minus, which I'm going to turn into plus negative 4, times 2/3, and then plus, because I like adding the opposite, negative 1. So working through these, the first thing that your calculator is going to do when you type this in is it's going to square 2/3, which means you actually square the 2 and the 3. So it's going to be 3 times 4/9. And when I type that in, what the calculator is going to give me is going to be 1.33. I will be erasing this in a little bit so I can get my graph on there. Going to my next term, the negative 4 times 2/3. When I type that into my calculator, it's going to give me negative 8/3, which is actually just negative 2.66 as a decimal. And then my last term is going to join it. And then if you did this, bit by bit by bit, if you take 1.33 plus negative 2.66 plus negative 1, then when you're done, your y-coordinate for the vertex is negative 2.33. Okay? So if you need to see that again, you're going to have to rewind it because I'm going to erase now so I can actually graph this. So, all right, so graphing it. Everything's based on a third, 2/3, negative 2.33, which is the same as negative 2 and 1/3. So what I'm going to do is actually change my scale into thirds. So looking at the y-axis, if I count up 3 starting from the center, this is worth 1. Here's 2, here's 3. And I'm going to do that the same here. So, and on the x-axis, so every 3 is worth 1. And I'm also going to label it so that whoever sees it knows what I'm doing. So graphing 2/3, negative 2/3. So over 2/3, and then down negative 2/3. So here's over 2/3, and then here's down -1, -2, and then here's a third. And now I'm going to actually erase those lines that I just put there. All right, now what I'm going to do is get my additional points as best I can. So remember, A is 3, so when I go up 3, I am not going to go up 3 spaces like this. So watch what I'm about to do. 1, 2, 3. That's not 3. It's 3 spaces, but it's not worth 3. I change the scale. So when I go up 3, this is what will happen. So here's up 1, here's up 2, here's up 3, and then I have to go over 1. So here's over 1 to my point. And then I can just find its partner point on the other side. Okay? And that's it. I'm not going to fit any more points on my graph, on my A table, because of my A table. So let me just erase the part that I don't need. But if you reset the scale, the main thing here is be careful when you use your A table. All right? All right, number 5, it's also in standard form, but when I go for the opposite of B, there is no B. So I'm going to quickly rewrite this. And now I'm going to find my vertex. So the x-coordinate, again, I'm going to take the opposite of b, which is 0, divided by 2 times a. And so when I take 0 divided by anything, I'm going to get 0 for my x-coordinate. And now I'm going to take 0 and put it back in my original equation. So I'll do that right above the equation. And 0 squared minus 2 is just -2. So y is going to be -2. So here's my vertex. It happens to be on the y-axis. And then my A table, I'm going to go up 1 and over 1, up 3 and over 1, and up 5 and over 1. There's number 5. Number 6, back to intercept form, just like the one above it. Again, it's called intercept form because when I look at it, I can see where the graph is going to intercept the x-axis. So according to the first set of parentheses, what turns this into 0? 2. So it'll hit the x-axis at 2. And the second one, what turns that into 0? 5. So I'll put that on the x-axis. Again, if you want to work your way to the middle, you can see that the vertex is going to be 3.5. But the other thing you can do is take these numbers that we graphed, the 2 and the 5, you add them up for 7, divide by 2, which will give you 3.5 as well. To find the y-coordinate, though, I have to take that 3.5, plug it back in for x to figure out what y is. And I'm going to do that up by the equation. So I'll do that right above. So y is going to end up equaling 3 with 3.5 minus 2, and then 3.5 minus 5. And you are more than welcome to type that into your calculator. What your calculator is going to end up coming up with is the 3. The first set of parentheses will give it 1.5. And the second set of parentheses will give it -1.5. So when you end up multiplying 3 with 1.5 and -1.5, don't add them, you're going to get -6.75. So that's the y-coordinate. So I'm going to go ahead and graph it. Here's 3.5. And -6.75, when I graph that, I'm not going to change the scale. I'm just going to estimate it more as 7. So about there. If you want to get more points, you're more than welcome to. Again, just think of it more as close to 7. And I can go up 3 and over 1. And then from there, I would go up 9 and over 1. And there's my u. I don't redraw my x-intercepts, but my u would go through them. And that's pretty good. That's all I need. All right, let's go to our final row. Final row, we're starting out with a vertex form. Again, I'm going to quickly go through and just understand the shapes. So on number 7, A is -1/2. That gives me an upside down U. Number 8, -3, upside down U. And on 9, -1/2, so upside down U. All right, again, on 7, it's called vertex form because when I look at it, I should be able to see the vertex. So the x-coordinate's going to come from the parentheses where the x is. What's going to turn those into 0? Or what's the opposite of what's in there? It's the same answer. It's -2. And k should be, as is, that -1 at the end. Again, mathematically, what would happen is if I were to put -2 in for this x, this whole term will turn into 0. And then 0 plus -1 is -1, so y would be worth -1. So I'm going to go over 2 and down 1. It's an upside down u, so according to my A table, and this is going to be a little harder to graph with a half, I'm going to go down a half and over 1, and then down 1 and a half and over 1, and then down 2 and a half and over 1, and I could even go down 3 and a half and over 1, and I get a lot of points. So again, the more points, the better. All right, number 8, also vertex form. So by looking at it, I'll go to my parentheses where the x is. What's going to turn that into 0, or what's the opposite of what I see in here? If it's in addition, that's 2. And k as is my y coordinate, 2. And again, mathematically, the idea is if I put 2 in for the x, this whole thing will turn into 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2, which is how I get the 2 for the y coordinate of my vertex. So I'm going to go over 2, up 2. And then according to my A table, I'm going to go down 3 and over 1, and then down 9 and over 1 because I do have room, and I do expect you guys to put as many points as you can. All right, last one, number 9, intercept form. So again, when I look at it, I can see where my graph is going to intercept or touch the x-axis. So according to the first set of parentheses, what turns that into 0? 3. And my second set of parentheses, what's going to turn that into 0? -2. And if you want to work your way to the middle, you will see that your x-coordinate is a half. But the other thing you can do is take those numbers that we just graphed, the -2 and the 3, add them up. There's 1. Divide by 2, and you can get a half that way. And to get the y-coordinate, I'm going to put that right above the equation. I'm going to take that half and plug it in. So don't forget the -1/2 that's there. And then I'll have a half minus 3 and a half, which I'm going to put as a decimal for this one, plus 2. Again, you are more than welcome to type this into your calculator, but I would still write down at least what you're typing into the calculator. So when I do that, the calculator will see this as -1/2. In my first set of parentheses, I'll get -2.5. And in my second set of parentheses, I'll get +2.5. And when I multiply all of that, I get 3.125. And that's a little tough to graph, so I'm just going to make it be about 3. And again, I can get some points. Assuming that's more like 3, I can go down a half and over 1. And then I can go down 1.5 and over 1. And then I could go down 2.5 and over 1. And I won't redraw my x-intercepts, but my u will go through there. And you could, that's enough points. That's pretty good. You can draw a pretty good u from there. All right, that's it. Remember, for the test, you're responsible for your A table, and you're responsible for understanding when I put those shortcuts or the quick notes of how to graph, you're responsible for understanding how to use those notes. Okay? That's it. We'll see you on Monday.